That's what I'm talking about. I love it.
Yeah, man. Live. So I know we just started recording. For those of you guys who are just tuning in, we got John Cooper on today. I told him that my hat says "Live Legendary," and of course, one of your big songs, man.
I love it. Live legendary. Oh, I have to add that word in. We'll do a special version just for you there. You need it with that killer icon you have in the back.
Oh, thanks, man.
Is that on the wall, right?
Yeah.
Is it painted? That looks awesome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Yeah. I made my own myself.
It looks good. That's real wood, right?
It is real wood. Yeah. I'm in a basement here. Some people say, do you have a studio? I'm like, no, it's a basement. See, check it out. Here you go. Check it out. There's my,
hey man, it looks good. It's got character, man.
That's what you got to do. I was like, I can make this crap look good. I just got to have some stain and some paint. We'll be fine.
There you go, man. There you go. Hey, John, where do you live these days? What city are you in?
I live in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Oh, no way. Okay. Is that where you're from?
No, my wife is from here. I married into Wisconsin. I'm from Memphis. So I lived in Memphis my whole life. We got married, and after about 2 years of marriage, we moved back up here. And I've been here for over 20 years, 21 years. And I'll tell you, I will never get used to this weather. It's freezing. It's freezing up here.
Right?
It's so cold, man.
Oh my gosh. So man. So before doing this work full time, I used to be in medical device sales, and I used to travel to all the Midwest. I live in St. Louis, so I'm not far from you.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And oh my God, dude, Sheboygan. Okay. So
yeah,
this was like 2012. I showed up to Sheboygan because I had to cover a surgery with one of our surgeons, and I got in my rental car. I got off the plane. And just going, on the ramp, right? I'm like, oh my God, this cold. Like I get in my rental car, the outside temperature thermometer reads -23 degrees. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, how do people live up here, man?
That sounds like Sheboygan. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh my gosh, man. Well, hey dude, seriously, welcome to the Dad Edge podcast. This is an honor meeting you. I say we because we have a super large audience of dads who listen to the show. We've been doing this now for 7 years. And I got to tell you, man, you got some serious fans in our audience for sure.
Oh, wow. That's so great to hear. Yeah. Oh, now I feel good. I didn't know that. Now I feel free. I'm joking. That's so great to hear. Well, I am surprised. I don't know if I say surprised. I'm thrilled to hear that. And I am a big fan of, a lot of rock stars don't talk about being a dad because it makes you seem old. You know what I mean? Right. Like there's this idea that you're supposed to be like, forever young. You gotta always, young. You gotta be 20. But I've always been very pro talking about being a father. And I have 2 teenagers. I have a teenage daughter that's 19. My son is 16. And I've always been a big fan of talking about it because I kind of look in society and I say, hey, I think one of the big things that's not going well is the fact that we don't teach people to be fathers in the way that we did 50 years ago in this country. Yep. And I see a lot of the problems in society. I just go, man, I don't want to be oversimplistic, but fatherhood could fix a lot of this. So even though it might not be cool for my career, I've always been very pro talking about being a dad because I kind of want to make it cool because it is cool. It's one of literally the best things in the entire world is being a dad. So let's make it cool again, man.
I love that, man. It sounds like the Steve Jobs line when he's talking about, we're going to make Apple cool again. That's one of the, it's funny you say that. I've said that in previous podcasts. I was like, part of the mission of this podcast is we're going to make dads cool again.
Yeah. Right? Yes. And you are 7 years later. That's incredible. Right. That's a long time.
It is, man. We've had some just amazing guests on the show in your industry.
I saw that. I saw that you had Nikki Sixx on.
Yeah. We had Nikki Sixx on.
People are surprised. or I don't know. I mean, I think they're surprised to find out how smart Nikki Sixx is.
Yeah, right. He's brilliant.
Oh, Nikki Sixx is just one of the. You know what you'll find in rock and roll band, the ones that last, especially. There's always at least one guy in those bands he's the brains guy. He's the smart guy. He's the philosopher or the business, the economics guy. Most all bands will have somebody like that. It was just that when I first started listening to Nikki Sixx on the radio, I had in my mind who Nikki Sixx was. I didn't think he'd be that guy. And you
Right.
listen to him on the radio, and you're like, this guy is really smart, and he's generous.
Yeah.
You know, he's generous with other people that disagree and don't. You know, he has people on, and I don't know him, but I've met him and did an interview with him, and he was so kind to me. So I like to brag on people who are generous. So there you go.
Oh man, that's so cool. It's funny you mentioned that. Obviously I was very keen to his story, and he's got kids, 62 years old. Well, so I have four boys. I have a 16-year-old. I have a 14-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. And my 15-year-old he's a huge fan of you guys. But I mean, this guitar in the background, it's actually his guitar, his bass, and his electric guitar.
Nice.
I've tried to play, John. I've got two left hands, I think, or something. Like, I don't know. That part of the brain is just, I've tried so hard, but it took me about 4 months to learn a song. I was just really bad. I'm very slow, but, that was the first interview I actually had my oldest son, because he loves rock and roll. He's like an old soul, loves rock and roll, loves 80s rock and roll, 90s rock and roll. And he's like, oh my gosh, can I please be a part of the Nikki Sixx interview? I'm like, yeah, sure. You can listen in. And then I had Ethan, my oldest, ask Nikki Sixx the last question. And I told him, I was like, don't tell me what the question is. I don't want to know. So he gets on and he's like, hey, and Nikki loved it. He was like, yeah, man, ask me a question. And my son said, what advice would you give my generation? And I was like, what is Nikki Sixx going to say? And I was blown away. He told my son, he's like, listen, man, I've been sober for 20 years. He's like, drugs when I grew up he's like, I wouldn't call them safe. He's like, they're highly illegal and they're dangerous. He goes, but the drugs today, they will straight up kill you. Like, the stuff that's out there, like it could be laced with something. He's like, there isn't a week or a month that goes by that I don't read where a teenager died, for trying something for the first time. And I was so blown away. I was like, wow, that's awesome that somebody like that can tell my son, like, stay away from that. That's super cool.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. And agreed. Agreed.
Right. Agreed.
Stay away. I mean, how many people even from this industry, you talking about 80s and 90s. I mean, a lot of our 90s icons have died from drugs,
Right.
Or suicide. I mean, I know we're all of a sudden turned a dark corner, but the point is that there's a ton of those music icons, and frankly, I'm kind of sick of it. I'm sick of seeing people that I just admire suicide or die from drugs or overdose, accidental overdose. It's such a problem, and it needs to be talked about. And it's so saddening to lose people like that. So good. I'm glad he did.
Yeah, he did. But man, like, hey, listen, this show is about you. I'm excited to hear about you. And what I'd really like to do, man, because so I'm a very spiritual person. And to be honest, I wasn't always that way. I would say the past couple of years, I've really gotten a lot of depth to my faith. And I'll be really real with you. I had no idea that Skillet, like your background, was the Christian background until about a year ago, I really started doing some homework on your band, and because I really liked the music, and I kind of got into the lyrics. I was like, man, these lyrics are so positive. And I remember hearing you on another interview that there was a few stations that were like, I don't know if we should play their music. It's too positive, right?
Yeah,
something like that. But
that's true.
Yeah. I really want to start with your upbringing, like even the relationship with your parents, like what it was like for you growing up, because you seem like you've done just a lot of really good in the world, man.
Well, yeah. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So, I was raised luckily blessed to be in a two-parent home. My mom, should say was. She died when I was young, but my mom was a Jesus fanatic. Okay. I'm talking about every morning before school. I had an older brother. My older brother was 4 years older than me. So every morning before my brother would go to school, we would have to sit down and my mom would read a Bible story. She would make him pray. I was too young to pray out loud. I remember I couldn't even talk hardly at the time, but my brother would have to pray and he would have to memorize scripture. And that's just how I grew up ever since I can remember, because my brother was older than me. And then when I was old enough to start praying out loud and memorizing scripture, it was my turn. So I was raised in a very religious home. Now, the funny twist on this that you might find interesting is that it wasn't just religious, it was like strict religious,
Right.
like old school Southern Baptist. You couldn't wear black. Like there's no way I could wear, or there's no way I could wear what I have on now. And I couldn't have this beard and this haircut and my tattoos. I mean, strict. Rock and roll was looked at as literally the worst thing the devil ever did. All right. And so I knew that because when I was 5 years old, I went to my buddy's house down the street, my best friend, and my best friend was like, dude, you got to hear this song. And he turned on something that was called MTV. And
Yeah, right.
yeah, it's like we're messed up now. I was like, what's MTV? He's like, music television. And I was just like, I don't understand what you're talking about. What's music television? And for any young people listening to this, that's back when MTV played music, nothing but music videos.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, not it's lame now. This is before it was lame.
Right.
Anyway, that was the first time I ever heard any music that was not church music. First video I ever saw, Michael Jackson, Beat It, and I was hooked. I was like, this is the best thing, the best moment of my life. This music was so good. And I came home and I said, Mom, I heard this song. And I started singing to my mom, Beat It. No one must have been. And my mom gave me the holiest Southern Baptist butt whooping God ever created. I'm telling you, my mom whipped me so bad, singing the devil's music. So that's my funny story, is that my parents were very religious. Most all of that is all a really good thing. Some of it I can laugh about now because they're doing what all parents do. Sometimes parents, we do stupid stuff, or we get a little crazy about some things, and we all mess up. And so I like to laugh about it now. But short version, my mom passed away. I was 15 years old, excuse me. My mom got cancer when I was about 11, and she fought cancer for a little over 3 years, and that was very formative in a lot of ways, in my life and my spiritual life. And you can hear that in my music. The reason my music is so positive, even in a time when rock and roll was not positive, the reason my songs have this like hope, this hey, I don't know what you're going through, but you're going to make it. That feeling is in Skillet's music. That is because of my mom's death, and it was music that brought a lot of healing to my life. Ultimately, it was my relationship with Jesus, but a lot of that relationship with Jesus was formed while I was listening to rock music and Christian rock music as well. It was something about the music made me feel understood. It was therapeutic. And that might sound kind of trite for some people, but that's what music did for me. And so I wanted to write music that I hope could be therapeutic for other people.
Wow, man. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you're at where you're at today because of what you went through as a young child, and the creative part of you was very, very therapeutic, right? And then
Absolutely.
sharing that.
Oh, 100%. Yes. That definitely made me who I am. And a lot of people say, if anybody doesn't know Skillet's music, number one, what's wrong with you? Go listen to Skillet. You're gonna love
Right.
it. No, I'm just joking around. But for those people who are listening that do know Skillet's music, they probably would recognize we sing a lot to what I would call people that are struggling with mental health problems, struggles, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, fighting with your dad. I've written a lot of songs about fighting with my dad, but I've also turned those songs into songs about forgiveness. And I talk about that on interviews. I'm always very candid about my relationship with my father growing up and how now we have a great relationship. And so yes, all of that is put into the song. I think that's where that feeling that I want to help people comes from. I know what it's like to be a teenager and feel absolutely alone, not understood, worthless, stupid. I think Nirvana said it best when they said, "I feel stupid and contagious." uh, that's a pretty good way
Yeah.
to say it. I know that feeling. And so I try to make music that people can rock out to. But if they are in that place, they will hear the lyrics and relate to it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I listen to your music when I'm in the gym.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can probably see this because the light shines on the thing, but I'll just show this to you real quick. So right here in my library, um, right there.
There it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
Sorry.
baby.
That's
I love
backwards.
it.
Yep. So I have your playlist right there and I listen to the music and it's just very, very uplifting. Plus the beat of the music I just truly, truly love. But yeah, I want to go back to you were 15 when your mother passed away.
Yeah, that's right.
John, that is man, that's a tender age, man. That's like a fragile age, right? That's like right in that midst of becoming a man,
Yeah,
truly, right? Um,
absolutely.
what kind of impact was that for you?
Yeah, it is a tough age. And I think also what extended the tragedy was a couple of things, if I may. It was that, first of all, my mom got sick when I was about 11 to 12. So it wasn't just when I was 15. It was this time when you really are becoming, like that's what the age 13 is considered. You're officially, in bar mitzvahs or whatever, you're officially a man. It is that time when you're really beginning to think for yourself, start to begin to make decisions about who you want to be, maybe as opposed to, who you're told you're supposed to be. You're having all these things. You're learning with your friends. You're learning to stand up and say what you think in a conversation at school, maybe with the teacher and things like that. My mom's, and we also have to remember, also, if I may, cancer treatment has come a long way in the last 30 years. This was the 1980s. And basically, what I'm getting at is this: my mom was sick, for what I can remember, for 3 years. I just remember my mom, she lost her hair, she shriveled down. She couldn't have been 95 pounds. The whole house just kind of, it just it just had a stench of death to it. I don't really know how to describe it. You can feel it. It's a very spiritual feeling. If you've ever gone to a hospital and you walk into the hospital room, that feeling that you have of you're in a room with somebody who's probably going to die, you never forget that feeling. That's what my house felt like. And so I dealt with it by running away. I went to friends' house. I went anywhere I could go except for being home. And so after my mom's death, my dad was suffering. My dad got remarried 2 months after my mom's death.
Wow.
And that began the darkest time of my life. I was handling my mom's death pretty well, but my dad getting remarried, and we started World War III at my house, man. We started World War III. So, long story short, the best thing that happened in my life, I began to read the Bible for myself, and I began to understand that God cared about my problems. And I know not everybody listening is Christian or spiritual. I'm just telling my story. There's a great Bible verse that I love that I memorized as a kid, and it's a life verse for me. Even if you're not a Christian, tell me how beautiful this sounds. It says this: "The Lord is my refuge and strength. He is always near me in my times of trouble." And that is an amazing promise in the Bible. So I began to pray at night in my bedroom. I would be so mad. I was so frustrated with my dad. I used to fantasize about hurting my father, which I'm not proud of, but I like to tell people this story so they can see how the healing begins. I would fantasize about having a way that I could hurt my dad. I felt betrayed by him, and I knew that he thought I was a failure. He was embarrassed to be seen with me. He was embarrassed that I was his kid. He told me that on multiple occasions as well. I wasn't the kid that he wanted me to be. And when I would go in my room at night and I would be alone and the demons would come, and I sometimes would say it, I would close my eyes and I would say, "The Lord is my refuge and strength. He's always present in my times of trouble." And through that, I began to realize that my life did matter, that I do matter because I matter to God. Even if my own father doesn't get me, I matter to God. And it is that meaning that has kind of shaped all of my perception of life. And 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 I've tried to instill in my own kids of why my own kids know why they actually matter. They matter because they matter to God, and so therefore, me under the authority of God, I am responsible for how I treat them under the authority of God. That's a pretty big responsibility a father has. So, long story short, that's how I dealt with it. But just to end on a very positive note, me and my dad get along.
Yeah.
We mended our relationship years later. He apologized to me. I've apologized to him. I was not a good son either. And we got to see how God really began to heal this relationship through forgiveness. And again, that's a very beautiful Judeo-Christian concept. And that we forgive other people because Christ has forgiven us. And I do not have the right to withhold that forgiveness to another person because I'm just as bad as he is,
Mm. Wow. So man, just a few reflections here. I can only imagine, what that journey was like because, I've got kids in that age range, and what's going on. You don't know what's going on, but you really know what's going on, right? You don't fully understand it, but you understand it. It's like sort of in these limbo ages, right? Where you can't even fully communicate and comprehend what's happening. You just know it's hurting, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing too, you and I have something in common as it relates to our fathers. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I want to share something that I want to make sure that the audience heard. So my kids and I, like we have this conversation, around God actually. And I'm currently taking my oldest through a 2-year mentorship called Operation Timothy, where I'm his Paul and he's my Timothy. And we're going through this curriculum right now that takes 2 years. And it really is super bonding stuff. But we've had this conversation where like, hey, I'm your earthly father, right? You have another father that's perfect. I'm your earthly father. So I'm naturally flawed, right? I'm doing the best I can, but I have been, blessed with the responsibility of you and guiding you and leading you. So I think that that's an amazing message for our kids. The other thing too is I really want to just reflect on this forgiveness piece because those are hard words, hearing from your father growing up. My mom and biological father were married for 5 years. They got divorced when I was about 9 months old. He left, never knew him. And I won't go along with this story, but I never knew him. And when I was 12 years old, I accidentally bumped into him and met him for the first time. And we had like this 6-month relationship and he was remarried. He had a 2-year-old son, another one on the way. We hung out for about 6 months. And after that, we kind of had this conversation of like, hey, it's me, it's not you. This is not a good time for me. And we went our separate ways. And that was devastating, right? Well, fast forward till I was 30. So 16 years ago, I'm in a Starbucks for a business meeting. And who came walking in for his morning coffee? My father. I had not seen him since I was 12.
Wow.
Now, here we are 17 years later, right? And this is what I think is beautiful about your story about forgiveness. Because I've had people ask me, because we've got a good relationship now. Actually, as we're doing this interview right now, I'm going out to dinner with my youngest brother and his fiance and my wife tonight. And we hang out a lot. But a lot of people are like, man, like how do you let that go? Like, how do you and I'm like, listen, we all have choices. Okay. Like I can choose to be angry, and to hold grudges and to be unforgiving. But that's like me drinking poison and hope he feels it, right? Or dies, right? It does neither one of us any good. So I can either be angry, and I can hold resentment and hold it against him, or I can be like, hey, what can we create together? My dad's 73. And what can we create together with the time that we have, because we don't have a lot of time on this earth. So what are the possibilities here? What can we do? And that's been the mantra. I took him out to dinner early on in our relationship when we had gotten to know each other for about the first year. I sat down with him. I'm like, hey, can you explain, please? Like, I just want to have this conversation one time, right? Let's get it all out. Just explain to me, please, what happened. And dude, he was very humbling. He was like, listen, worst mistake I ever made in my life. It felt right at the time. I don't know why. I can't explain it. It just felt right. I was so confused. I was so overwhelmed. I was younger. I wasn't making good, but I made the mistake. I have had to live with that forever. And it's been something I think about every day. So I also think about like your dad, right? Who he knows that was hard on you, and he's had to ask for forgiveness, right? And that's hard to do as a human being. But I think it's beautiful, man, because like, you and I are right at the same age, and we could hold these grudges, but we've decided like, hey, we're going to take another path here, and we're going to see how beautiful this relationship could be.
Well, that's a really powerful story. Thanks for telling me that. There's a song on my new record.
Yeah.
The song is called Destiny. And you know how music is. It's going to mean something different to everybody that hears it. They're going to have their own what that song means to them. But I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet. And I believe that you're the first that I can remember, because the album isn't out yet. But I will tell you why I wrote Destiny. I wrote Destiny about the very thing you're just now talking about. Destiny, the song, is about I have a choice. I have a choice over where I go. And you can choose to forgive somebody, or you can choose to not forgive somebody. And whether they deserve it or not isn't even the point. And if you don't choose forgiveness, you're the one that's going to suffer. As you just said it really well. Drinking poison to hurt someone else, guess what? It ain't going to work. You're the one that's going to suffer. And there's a line, if I could tell people the song lyric, there's a line here that's in the song that says, I'm running towards the light. I'm free of all the rage I thought would never leave. This darkness ain't my destiny. And it's my favorite line, one of my favorite lines I've ever written in my whole career, and I know it because I get emotional when I even say it. I'm free of all the rage I thought would never leave. You told me when I was 15 or 16 years old, there would be a time when I didn't have rage. I wouldn't have believed it. And so I would say this to listeners. I know not everybody listening is going to be a person of faith, and that's wonderful. I'm glad you're listening, no matter who you are or what you believe. The truths of the Bible. There are people that look at the Bible and say, I don't believe that it's God's word, as Christians believe it's God's word, but there are just it's like ancient wisdom, right? So there are intellectual people that can say, yeah, that's actually it's a wisdom tradition. The wisdom tradition, if you want to call it that, of the Bible, of forgiveness, you cannot deny it. You cannot deny it. When you meet somebody who is bitter, the stench of bitterness is all over them. The Bible says it's like a root. It goes down to the heart, and it roots, unforgiveness, it roots into you, and it produces death. And we all know people that are so bitter about what they've had to go through, real pain. I don't mean like, fake issues. They're not fake victimhood, actual victimhood. They have suffered real pain, but the only person that's suffering is them. And the Bible, once again, the Bible is right. It goes into you and it creates bitterness, but forgiveness is freeing. And I will just say this to end. Forgiveness is it's an incredible gift. When we forgive someone who doesn't deserve it, if I could be so bold to say, we are doing something like what God does. We are getting a chance to kind of act like Jesus, which is an incredible. That's an incredible gift. Forgiveness is a gift, and so you give forgiveness to someone that doesn't deserve it, and in the end, it doesn't just free that person; it frees you. And I would encourage people, no matter how much you've been mistreated. I don't know what kind of abuse you've gone through. I don't know your story, But I had somebody come up to me after a show one time when I had shared my story about this song we're going to play. And all I said was, I wrote this for my dad. We had a bad relationship. There were times when we hated each other, but I have forgiven him and we're friends now. That's all that I said. And somebody came up to me after a show, a grown woman, adult woman, crying. And she said, when you said that, I felt something in my heart change. And she said, I called my grandfather who raised me for the first time in 20 years because he raised me, but he sexually abused me. And I called him tonight and I said, you don't deserve it, but I'm going to forgive you because it's killing me inside. And this woman was crying, and you could see on her face that she had been set free. It's not about whether he deserved it or not. He deserves to go to prison, right? He doesn't deserve to be forgiven. Neither do we. That's the beauty of the gospel message of Jesus Christ.
Wow. When you, both times when you stated those lyrics, man, I got chills and I felt emotional. I've never heard it stated like that. I'm not giving you lip service either. Like when you said that, I was like, man, that is very, very powerful. Was that something, when you created those lyrics and those in particular, was that something that just maybe you were in flow state, or were you just like really thinking and reflecting deeply on something and then that emerged for you?
It was more like, as you just said, flow state. I like that. I've never used that, but I like it. But it is like that when you're writing, right? You know, they say, you know, you sometimes you stream of consciousness writing. You let something come out. I've written songs both ways, and I will actually say most of this record was written more stream of consciousness, which is not my typical writing style. That song, I don't know why, it just happened really fast. And those lyrics were coming out, and it was almost like it came out of me, and I knew that it moves me. But it wasn't until I took the lyrics up and I showed my wife. My wife is also in the band, and so we write songs together. And I said, "Hey, I want to show you this lyric," and I was singing it. And when I started singing those words, I'm not supposed to admit this because I'm a rock star, but I started choking up and tearing up because it's just so, it's powerful. It's not because I'm still hurt. I'm not hurt. It's almost like the beauty of not living in that sort of rage just really moved me. So I'm glad that hit you. I'm glad we got to talk about it. And it's also good because I hope it's encouraging to dads that I've messed up with my kids. So I'm assuming everybody here is just like me, and you've done stupid stuff where you've yelled at your kids when they didn't deserve it, and you said some nasty stuff you shouldn't have said to them because you were in a bad mood and stressed out about your job and your bills. If you've never done that, then you're a better dad than me. I have done that, and every single time that I have gone back to my kids and I've said to them, "Hey, I want to ask that you forgive me. I should not have acted like, it's not how a dad is supposed to treat his kids." My kids, I mean, they've forgiven me instantaneously. And not only that, you are teaching your children how to repent well. We live in a society where no one repents and no one repents well. That is something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. So I just want to encourage dads. Repenting sucks. It's hard. It's embarrassing. And you think, oh, they know I love them. They probably do know you love them, but try repenting and you watch how your kids will become people who learn to repent themselves.
Man, that's really, really powerful. You know, I'm thinking that one of the reasons you got emotional, you know, stating or singing those lyrics was because maybe you were honoring and appreciating the growth and the evolution of you emerging and being able to evolve into that person.
Right.
And some of us, John, I mean, some of us never get there. Right. But
I
when
know
we,
what you mean.
right. But when we do, I've said this on the podcast before, but the forgiveness is like taking off that 50-pound rucksack. You kind of don't want to do it, and you live life so much with it. It feels kind of weird. Like if you didn't have it, and then all of a sudden you take it off and you're like, wow, I didn't realize how burdensome that really was. Right. Uh,
That's very true. It's so wonderfully said. Yeah, I think you're right. And I also think, and I think I've already said this, but just to mention it again, I was also not a good son. It's not like I was awesome and, just treated really poorly and I did everything right. It when you forgive other people, a lot of the times you begin to understand that you really made a bunch of mistakes, as well. And so I'll say one more thing about it, if I may.
yeah, please.
I think I just want to say it because culture is changing so fast and so much that part of what young people are growing up with, they're growing up in a culture that tells them that whatever they feel is good. Our generation did not grow up in a culture that said whatever you feel is good. We
Right.
kind of, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
It is this isn't just like your typical, those youngsters back in my day. This isn't your typical young people like something that old people don't like. This is a philosophical shift. And so young people are also not being taught to forgive or to try new things or whatever, because they are taught that whatever they authentically feel makes them who they are. And so it's okay. So if you don't want to forgive somebody, then you shouldn't have to because that makes you feel uncomfortable. And I just want to mention that that is not good for society. That is not good for young people. They will end up eventually entering into the workforce, or real life is going to smack them at some point in the head. And if it doesn't, it'll just be because all of culture has become that way. And once all of culture becomes that way, you find that you'll never be able to live with a next door neighbor that disagrees with you about who to vote for or anything. I mean, we don't agree on anything, and we won't live in a society that is just civil. I mean, where you can disagree with people and say, "Hey, come over and have a cookout. You don't have to vote for who I vote for or pray the way that I pray or X, Y, or Z. Let's be friends." That's really not good. So I'm just throwing that out there right now because culture is shifting so fast for these young people. It's scary.
You're right. And I think you said it beautifully, but one of the greatest things that we can teach our kids is how to apologize and forgive and ask for forgiveness, because it teaches them a couple of things. Like you said, number one, how to repent. Number two, ownership, right? Like, hey, I am owning what I
Yeah.
did and I'm asking you for forgiveness. And that's a very humble thing. I mean, maybe you grew up like I did, but like I never heard an apology from parents. Like it was always like, well, I'm the mom and that's why. And, I'm not apologizing. So I want to make sure that I do want to talk about your new album, but obviously it's a dad show. So I want to talk on just two more topics briefly. And number one is, you're raising teenagers. You come across to me as you enjoy fatherhood. I can tell, like at the core of you, who you are, John, like I can tell you enjoy fatherhood, but
Sure.
now raising teenagers, you've been a dad now for 19 years, 19-year-old, 16-year-old. What has been the lessons that your kids have taught you? How about
Oh, dang.
that? Right.
Oh man, my kids have taught me so many. The first lesson I think comes for probably most all of us when you first have your first kid, and you suddenly realize how selfish you are. As far as I know, everybody knows that. Like, oh, I can't just do whatever I want to, whenever I want to anymore. You know, I that was that was a big one for me, to be honest with you, because I like my personal time. I like doing whatever I want to do when I do it. When you have a kid, you truly learn to really do what love actually is. I mean, the whether you're talking about the Bible or even the Greeks in general, this idea of like agape love, we hear it in Christianity quite a lot, but there was another, just in Greek society. It is a self-sacrificial love. It is a serving kind of a love. Your kids are babies, they don't love you back. So it's not like it's reciprocated. You know what I mean? It's not like your kid is like, thanks so much for changing my diarrhea diaper again. Thanks for cleaning me off after I just puked all over you, Dad. There's no reciprocal thing that they are doing for you. it is nothing but service. And that truly actually is the definition of what love is. And so I think that my kids taught me some very deep lessons about the fact that I don't love very well, to be honest. When I feel like I really love people is when they're really loving me back, to be honest. And, and it taught me to be a better husband because we do that in our marriages, don't we? Like I'm going to keep treating my wife this way as long as she keeps treating me this way. And it we I mean, we should obviously have a reciprocal love relationship, but there are times when guess what? Somebody has a bad day and you just gotta shut up and deal with it. Shut up. Yeah, your wife had a bad day. You've had plenty of bad days. That's what I tell myself. I'm not telling your listeners this. I'm telling myself this. John, quit being a baby. Love your wife, and everything is going to work out. And it has. So those are some good things that I've learned from my kids. Probably other things. Here's a good one. I've probably learned to be more, not that I'm the most sensitive person in the world. I've probably learned to say things a little more sensitively because uh, culture makes me so mad. The dumb stuff that happens every single day on the news or whatever makes me so frustrated that
Yeah.
I just want to like just blast people. And having kids in that within the same generation, I just realize, yeah, just because I want to vent, this could actually hurt. This could hurt somebody. I mean, this could. I see it in my kids the way they communicate and the way that they need to know that I have their back. And I don't think I'm always the best at that, to be honest, because I'm like, hey, we don't have time for all those sissy conversations. Let's just get to it. You need to do this, and I can see that it has an effect. And so maybe a little less dogmatism on my end could be a good thing.
You are like an ownership kind of dude, man. Like know thyself, right? I like it, man.
Yes, take
Um,
it, take
Very
it.
good. And remind me, how many years have you been married now?
25.
20.
No, no, I'm sorry. Actually, in March will be 25.
All
Excuse me.
right.
My band has been together 25 years. I've been married almost 25 years, so I get the two confused.
Got it. So lessons, what have you most appreciated about being married for nearly a quarter of a century now? And let's also add some value to the audience of things that work really well for you guys that maybe you didn't know early on.
Oh, interesting. You know what I value most? My wife is the most loyal person I have ever known. And to tell you the truth, probably because of lots of things in my life, um, I probably was not the most loyal person in the world, just to be 100% honest. I didn't think of myself as completely disloyal, but I probably didn't really get loyalty as a virtue. You know what I mean? And fidelity. And I think that that's probably one of the things that really attracted me to my wife, to be honest. And she's a very deep person. Learning from her what fidelity means and what loyalty means, I think that is my favorite thing about marriage because I find that we have these ideas of what love is that I think are probably unhelpful, and again, young people these days, for all the dads out there who have read the statistics just like I have, what you see in younger generations don't want to be married. There are less people marrying. There are less people having kids. We're not having children at a what do they call it? What's the rate you call it when there are more people dying than more people being born?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called replacement population or whatever. We're not actually going to replace our population at this point because we're having less children and this and this and this. And a lot of times what I think with young people is they've been raised in this culture. I was too, but I think young people are more today even. That love is a feeling. And so whenever you don't have that feeling of love, then to be authentic, then you just need to end the relationship. Because once again, there's nothing worse in life than being inauthentic, according to this new cultural paradigm. That was different, certainly for my parents' generation, even different for my generation, but certainly for my grandparents and whatnot. They understood love as commitment and fidelity and service and a decision that you make. I make a decision to love you.
Yep.
That's what I've learned from my wife. And that has been my favorite thing, because when you're in that reciprocal decision to love each other, a great amount of security comes, because my wife doesn't need to worry if I have wandering eyes, you know what I mean? So to speak. My wife doesn't have to worry about what I am watching on my computer screen or my relationship with friends and other, because love it's not about a feeling. It's not about feeding my flesh. It's not about what I think that I need. Love is a decision that we both make. I've learned so much about that. I found it to be a very freeing relationship, and I'm very secure with my wife, because again, there are going to be days when we get along better than other days, but that's okay. It's the decision. Some people, that might sound unromantic. I actually think it's more romantic, because you'll find with fidelity will come a greater it's just like being in the armed forces or something like that. You know, it's when you talk to guys who serve this country, I mean, they may not see those guys, but once every 5 years, when they see each other, they are brothers for life. I mean, they did the stuff together. And I have great respect for armed forces people. I really love our military folks. And that's something that marriages could really learn from, frankly. It's not unromantic. It's just different than what culture tells you.
I'm really glad you hit on that, man. I freaking love this podcast, dude. I could talk to you for hours. I know we don't have that time, but I love the fact that you hit upon this thing of, you know, and my wife and I have been married for 18 years. We've known each other for 25. And, you know, people think that it's got to be a feeling. It's got to be a feeling. And if it's not the feeling, then we're just not meant to be. And that's actually not true. It's a choice, right? I choose you. I choose to be loyal. I choose to love you. And I'm so glad you hit that home, because you're right. A lot of younger people in particular, I think, need to know that message, especially as they evolve in their own young marriages. I want to give you time to talk about this new album. Dude, you got me like, I want 10 copies right now, especially of that one song, just so I can hear those lyrics over and over again. But talk to us about the new album. When's it coming out? What's it called? If you can talk about it.
Well, that's very kind. I would love to talk about it. The record comes out January 14th.
Cool.
And it's called Dominion. And this record rocks really hard. If you want a good gym album, this is a good gym album. It's a bit, it'll get you pumped up, because this album is a little bit heavier, very in your face. So you can hear the first single. Actually, I think we have 3 singles out now. The first one's called Surviving the Game. And the lyrics are what you would expect about surviving the game. I mean, does anybody not feel like after the last 2 years that we've had, that you are just ready to come off the leash and face whatever is coming your way? I mean, talking about wanting to survive and thrive in 2022. That's the feeling that I had. And I wanted to write this song that was inspiring for people to face those fears. I mean, I know people, even some great friends, that are just they're locked up. They're locked up in fear, and they're locked up in this, nothing's ever going to be okay again. Some of them have gone to, they've gone to substance abuse or alcohol abuse, or just drinking to unhealthy levels, because they're just depressed, and they have a right to be depressed. The last 2 years have sucked. And I mean, right. You have a right to be kind of down, but what they're doing is creating a perpetual loop that they're not going to get out of. And so I wanted to write a record that when you turn it on, it gives you that little kick that you need in the morning that says, wait a minute, I'm not going to be a slave to fear. I'm not going to be a slave to those bad habits, alcohol or whatever bad habits there are. I'm not going to be a slave to those things. I am going to face my world head on, face my problems head on. Nothing is going to get me down, because I am going to take, wait for it, dominion over my life. I'm going to take authority over my life. I'm not going to let internal bad forces or external bad forces rule over me. And I think that that is a positive message that the world needs. So that's what the overall record is about. It's heavy, it rocks, but it's very melodic and singable. And I'm just really excited about the fans here. Every song has got a line or two that will like make you want to face the world. You know, there's a song, it's out now. It's called Standing in the Storm. And Standing in the Storm is that line, the opening line of the song says, I still got some life in me. That's all you need to hear. I still got some life in me. You don't have to give up. I still got some fight in me. That's what it says. So if you want some fight, check out that new Skillet album.
Man, this is what the world needs right now. Cause you're right. I feel like we're like dogs who are chained to that tree. So just let me out of here already. Right.
It is like, that's exactly, that was a shorter and better version of what I just said. Next interview, I'm going to say, this song is about feeling like a dog chained to a tree.
There you go.
Come off the leash.
Oh man, John, seriously, dude, this has been such a pleasure, man. Like I said, I've been listening to your music for years. We just did our Dad Edge Summit, our live event here in St. Louis. We had almost 200 guys at that event.
Wow.
And it was a 2-day event, immersion event. And the last thing that we did was, because our tagline is Live Legendary. We played your song and the freaking room, man. We had
sick.
These guys on their feet, like they erupted. We were screaming "Live" from the stage, and they screamed "Legendary!" Like so badass, man.
That is so cool! Wow, what an honor! Thanks for telling me that.
Oh, dude,
it's really great to see. I've met people here and there all over the country with a similar feeling as what you're doing. And it feels to me like there's a lot of people from I would say ecumenical, meaning not just religious people or one particular religion. And I've met people on the political left and the political right who all seem to be saying it seems like there's a problem, and maybe fatherhood is it needs to be talked about. Did you see that about 2 months ago? I think it was. Did you see that group of men down in
New Orleans?
Yes.
Yeah. Dad's on duty.
Dad's on duty.
Yeah.
Dude, I was jumping up. I was amening it when I saw it on the news. I was just like, this is what I'm talking about. And this sounds to me like what you're doing. So keep going for it, man.
Nice, man. Dude, I really appreciate that. Gentlemen, not to worry. We're going to have a link in the show notes for John's album because it is out. So we'll have a link for you in that. John, this was such a pleasure, man. Can't wait.
I loved it.
Me too. I can't wait to see you guys in concert. We, my family and I, we went to your website. We've been trying to buy tickets. And when you go to buy tickets, it leads us to not your website. There's another one that it leads you to another website to where you have to go get on a list of some sort. I'm not really understanding.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we tried to secure
We're
tickets.
not near that big, so that doesn't make sense. That sounds like Metallica, maybe.
Maybe. But no, man, thank you so much for coming on today.
I sure loved it. Thanks for having me.
Me too. Hey, real quick before you head out, do you mind if we do just a quick screenshot? Just photo.
Yeah.
Cool. Is there anything you like to do, whether it's like this or like that?
Whatever you tell me to do, I will do.
I'm up for anything, man.
All right. I'm going to give him 2 fists.
2 fists? All right. There you go. I had to have this other hand on my mouse for this. But,
hey, obviously, I hit Velvet about the whatever show that is. Is that is it in March?
I believe it was, oh my gosh.
Or was it earlier than that?
I think it was the Nashville one, maybe. Do you have one in
Nashville? I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes, we do. Oh, yeah, hit Velvet. That'll be, she'll hook that up easy. And then you can get to meet, well, my son will be there too. So I'll meet my band, my wife, and my son, and I'll get to meet your wonderful family. That'd be awesome.
Dude, that would be amazing. You know, I've always been a fan, man. I mean this, but seeing this side of you, man, really good stuff. Really good stuff.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so encouraging. Well, this is the most fun I've had in a long time. So
awesome.
That was just super fun. I mean, stuff that, don't always get to talk about. So
right.
Excellent, man.
I appreciate you, man. Well, hey, God bless you, man. Keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing things, man. Just keep inspiring people.
Well, thank you so much. Likewise. I hope to see you in Nashville or down the road. Keep living legendary, baby.
Live legendary. Appreciate you, man.
All right. Later,
Take
dude.
care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.